If you've listened to my channel for any length of time, you know I am against piracy very, very strongly. I think that pirating comics, it's not healthy for the industry. I think that a lot of people put up excuses when they pirate about, you know, well, it's not hurting anyone, or these are giant corporations can afford it, or I'm pirating it for now, but I'll go back and I'll pay for it later. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that's just not true. But piracy is a real thing. It is something that impacts the industry, and we can't just close our eyes and wish it to go away. So there has to be an alternative. There has to be a solution. There has to be a way to work with this model. So let's break down piracy and really talk about why people do it, beyond the obvious, and how you can actually start to utilize it and make some progress. Hey everybody, this is Perch. It's a nice rainy day here in the Seattle area, so hopefully there's not too much background noise that's hitting things. But when you drive around Seattle, there's a lot of trees that overhang the road, so you get the rain and you also get the splatters of water coming off the trees. It creates a lot of, anyway. I don't know what I'm saying right now. Look, piracy. Um, Piracy is one of those things where there's kind of some immediate reactions to it, but there's also a lot of hypocrisy. And one of the things that this was most on display was during the this recent ruling around the Internet Archive and being forced to take down books. And people like Chuck Winding and other creators were involved in pushing to get this done. But also, you see a lot of people on Twitter kind of cheering on this movement, cheering on Winding and others for ending this. They're calling it piracy. But what's confusing about this is you can see these exact same names, many of the exact same people talking about how piracy was, that they pirated books and kind of saying that, I pirated books and that's what led me to a love of comics, kind of excusing it. And so it's kind of confusing to figure out, who's against what and where again. Is piracy bad full stop, or is it, piracy is good unless it's affecting our work as independent artists and then it's bad? Is it that this pirate site is operated by a red state versus a blue state, and that's what makes it good or bad? It's extremely inconsistent, and I guess that's my frustration. What gets me kind of very irritated with piracy is because it is so. People fight it at different ways, different manners, and not consistently at all. And on top of that, because people are fighting about it, arguing about it, and in many cases using a lot of straw man arguments against each other, they don't solve the actual problem. It's one thing. It makes for a very nice soundbite of a tweet. Pay artists for their work. Sounds great. You should definitely do that. I do believe that when people do things, they should get paid for it. I absolutely agree. And again, it's weird when I started discussing this a couple days ago. It was weird to see people come in and kind of say, "Oh, so you're for piracy?" It's like, well, clearly you're new to the table, because I've had a lot of arguments about this, and I think my stance on piracy is pretty well established at this point. Flat wrong. But again, if I say it's wrong, or I say pay artists for their work, or any of that kind of stuff, it doesn't really mean anything. It's my opinion. That's nice, but does that solve anything? Does it put money in artists' pockets? Does it actually, contribute and benefit anything or anyone? No, my statements do not. So in general, if we want to stop piracy, I mean, your thought. First of all, piracy. There's a bunch of things that go into it. First, there's a desire for convenience. In many cases, piracy, it's just much easier to to pirate than it is to purchase, and that's an indication of how bad the distribution is in a lot of cases, and how screwy our current channels are. That many people would rather pirate because it's just far more convenient to do so, let alone the cash. And then, of course, there's the issue of price. That one area where you see piracy really come in is when the price to value gets so out of sync that people are willing to risk some criminality. They're willing to risk getting caught because the price is it's out of whack with sensibilities. And you saw this with music, where there would be a $15 basically a CD, and you'd have maybe two songs on that CD that you really like. And some places sold singles, but they'd sell the singles for like $6 to $7 for the single. And so you saw piracy as both more convenient, you'd be able to instantly get the music and share it, and and try something out. Uh, and it was too expensive. It just you didn't want to pay $15 for an album when you really just wanted one song off of it. So that's where piracy kind of came, where that really blossomed. And a lot of people railed against it. And despite everything I've said, it is more convenient and the price is an issue. It's still illegal, still wrong. But what you see occurred as the music industry did, kicking and screaming, by the way, the entire way, they adapted. You did see disruptors come in and start selling more music kind of a la carte by track. You saw services like iTunes say we're gonna tackle the distribution problem, and you saw people kind of rally to figure out how to live in this new space. With comic books, you see a very, very different thing going on. You see, on one hand, people say, piracy is bad, pay artists for their work, kind of in a scolding, like, finger wagging, pay artists for their work kind of way. And then simultaneously, you see no real steps being taken to change anything. Forget, like, I do expect, at some point, Disney or somebody may wake up and say, yeah, it's worth spending a couple bucks of lawyers to kind of go chase this. And there's a concerted effort to go, try and shut down some of these sites and some of these services. But the challenge is that's really reactive. What needs to happen is that the comic industry needs to come together and say, all right, people are out there pirating books. How do we actually, make it so it's easier to consume? How do we address some of the financial parts of it? Maybe prices are too expensive. I mean, imagine, shocking. Maybe things are too expensive. Uh, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take somebody within comics to say, all right, let's think about this like disruptors. Let's think about this of the difference between going to Hastings or a record store or a CD store. What are those garbage stores like Fi or those places in malls? Let's say, okay, that's old model, and new model is we're going to build iTunes and we're going to just vend music directly through the software here, and that's how we're going to do it. Imagine if instead the music industry and all the people around say, nope, no innovation, we're going to sue you. You can't, Apple, we won't let you build iTunes. Absolutely not. The only people are going to have to keep going to Hastings. Well, ultimately, people would have just consumed a lot less music. It just and it wouldn't have changed anything. The piracy would have been out of control, and they would have gotten no business out. I mean, they basically would have been taking money away from themselves. And I think that's where comics are right now. Is these kind of attempts to nobody is really making a hard effort to combat piracy. And my feeling is at some point they will do that, but nobody, like, who are the disruptors out there trying to actually change the model so that rather than prevent something that you cannot stop, that they're actually turning and veering people into a new business model where people still get paid. There's a lot of, by the way, whenever there's a disruptor that comes in and changes an industry, there's definitely people in that industry who make less money. And what I think didn't happen in music, or it kind of happened, but nobody felt a lot of tears for super rich music producers. They'd already been kind of categorized as evil, soulless. There are lots of stereotypes. No one really wanted to get behind that. But with comics, it's going to be different. The second disruptors come in and really start to change how comics are consumed and what happens, you're going to see a lot of people kind of, the indications are what you're seeing with DC and Diamond right now, where DC is like, I think we're going to get another distributor and we're going to create some other distribution options. And you see the most hyperbolic, DC are sociopaths. They're sticking a shiv in Steve Geppi. You're going to Tuesday instead of Wednesday. You are betraying all that is comics. Just this way over the top reaction. So can you imagine if an Amazon or an Apple comes in and says, you know what, we're going to vend comics in a completely different way. It's going to be done in this new model. Imagine if like a company like Shonen Jump came to the US and said, hey, here's how you're going to get comics, a la carte subscribe. Here you go. And you can get it just this way. And we're going to give some stuff away for free. And this is what we're going to do. You are going to see people just come completely unglued in this industry of like, no, you cannot change things. No, you're betraying. This is artists you're talking about here. How dare you? And it's an indication of some people are realize that they're going to make less money, that their cushy lives are going to change. And rather than help come up with that change, rather than actually, be a change agent and help, create this new world, instead we're just going to scream and scream and scream and hope that we can continue to cling on to the dollars we're getting as long as we can. And that's my view of piracy. It's something that exists now. You cannot stop it. You cannot just you'll magically kind of turn it back. And also, you cannot assume, and we need to just stop saying it. We cannot keep saying that, oh well, piracy is okay because people will just buy those books anyway. They'll buy what they like, and it will all work out in the end. Lots of evidence. I always love when these people say there's tons of evidence that suggests that piracy actually helps sales. It does if, huge if, underline big if, disruptors come in and change the market and change how things are consumed and sold. If those things happen, yeah, more money comes in. If they do not, and you can see a perfect example of music and movies and comics, music adapted. Again, through pain, there were definitely lawsuits and there was screaming and crying and everything else, but music ultimately adapted and strengthens itself and created new business channels, new ways to make money. Movies half adapted. There was some adaptation, there was some change, but there was a lot of screaming, and there still is a lot of confusion, and nobody's really come in to disrupt how movies are concerned. Unless you certainly have streaming services and other things, but in many cases, the only reason why the movie industry is not bleeding out all over the place is because you did see Netflix and some of these others, Amazon Prime, come in and at least offer other models. Kind of a different topic than piracy, but has kind of blunted that attack. And now we have comics where just nobody's doing anything. There is no plan. And in many cases, the only plan is every now and then somebody comes up and freaks out about piracy. And again, it makes me mad too. Piracy takes money out of my pocket. But you can't just scream about it. You can't just post your tweet. Piracy keeps artists from getting their money. Please like and retweet. That wonderful. You got a nice following. None of that is valuable. Anyway, there you go. What do I have to say? That's why I think piracy is something that exists. We have to solve it. We have to come up with some solutions around it. We can't wish it away, and that is going to have to be something that we have to deal with. And it's time we got to thinking about it. So what are your ideas? What do you think about piracy? The topic? Leave your comments below. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.